Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of Creating Comics with me, Prentice Rollins. This is the second of two lessons in which I'll be dealing with the creation of comic book covers. As I said before, the cover of a comic book is an incredibly crucial part of the success of the comic book. It's the first thing the viewing and buying public sees, and it has to speak for and advertise the book in a way that's eye-catching and appealing. Comic book can be derailed at any stage of the production process, and the cover is sort of stage one. It's the very first thing the public sees. So it's got to be good. It should be an exciting, well-composed, enticing image that promises the reader a thrilling comics reading experience. Just to give you an idea of the covers I've worked on, here's a quick run-through. So there you go. I penciled and or inked every one of those covers that you just glimpsed. Just to once again start things off on a light note, let's take a quick look at some notoriously awful comics covers from the past. Sometimes, despite the best intentions of artists and editors, things just don't work out. A lot has been said about the neurotically awful artwork of Rob Liefeld. I'm not going to add to that. It kind of speaks for itself. Here's Superman, looking exceptionally strange and psychotic. Taffy from 1948. How this got past the censors is a mystery to me. Magnus, robot fighter from the 60s, I guess. Yes, beating a chunk of metal with his bare hands. Brain Boy. Looks to me like Brain Boy is doing a belly flop into what he thinks is a swimming pool, but is actually a desert. The Rifleman. Again, how did this get past the censors? You just don't know what to say. Saving can be fun. Certified by parents. I don't know if the human frame was meant to take this kind of excitement. Truly unfortunate, but these things happen. So, as I said last time, I was asked by my longtime friend and colleague, Carl Paolino, to do a couple of covers for his comic book, Spontania. Carl is a creative whiz, an accomplished filmmaker and animator with a lifelong obsession with comic books. And a couple of years ago, he decided to take the plunge and write and publish his own superhero comic, Spontania. Spontania, also known as Elke Eckhart, is a high school gymnast with a very interesting power. She has a preternaturally heightened sense of intuition and can predict people's future actions based just on their facial tics. A bunch of geeky friends of hers created an invulnerable combat suit, and she went into the amateur superhero biz. Here's some of the past Spontania covers done by other artists. There's Spontania issue number 1, issue number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, Mr. Ethereal, and number 6, battling some giant wolf creature. If you want to learn more about Spontania, you can find out more here. In this episode, I'm going to be dealing with the second of the covers I did for Carl. The cover for the second Spontania trade paperback, compiling a number of issues. For this cover, Carl wanted a simple image. He sent me this image, the cast of the old TV show Friends, to give me a feel for what he was going for. What Carl wanted was what I'll call a statement cover. A statement cover is a simple, punchy image that makes a statement. Sort of like the Friends image says friendship or love. There are many famous statement movie posters. Here's just a few. 2001: A Space Odyssey, Alien, The Exorcist, Jaws, Psycho, Rocky, Star Trek, and Westworld. These are all some of my very favorite films. These are not montages. They're just simple images that say something directly, simply, and intriguingly. I've done lots of statement covers for comics in the past, and here's a few of those. Hardware. And if you're wondering what the statement is, it's right there. If you think you know hardware, you're wrong. Hardware again. The statement here, you probably don't want to mess with this guy. This is the unpublished cover to an issue of Bang Babies from Milestone. It's just a bunch of characters and an explosion. Looking bad. Robin, penciled by Pat Gleason. The statement here is joy. This was my original idea for a trade paperback cover. It shows Spontania and her friends watching a movie. In my mind, it's a scary movie like The Shining, amidst an apocalypse of junk food. To me, it said friendship. And more importantly, it showed the gang doing something that young readers could relate to, just being kids, vegging out and watching a scary movie. Carl liked it, but not for the trade paperback cover. He thought it was too specific, and he wanted something warmer and more inviting. So I had the idea of Spontania taking a selfie with her friends, which is definitely something youngsters of today can relate to. Let's dive into the details of how it went. Again, I did all the work with my software of choice, Clip Studio Paint Pro. Okay, so here I am. I'm starting to sketch in Spontania, Elke Eckhart, and I'm using just the pen tool. Again, the reason I'm using blue ink is so that when I put in the final inks on a separate layer in black, they won't conflict with the blue. And I'm just starting to put in all these other characters, all of her friends, and it's kind of slowly taking form. Starting to work on roughing in the details of the face. Using this is all sped up, by the way. I don't actually work this fast. Starting to put in Spontania's hair. Continuing on with the ears. I just use the selection tool to adjust one of those eyes. It's one of the things that makes working digitally handy, is you can select various little parts and things and change them easily without having to erase and redraw. Okay, so a few hours later I finished with the roughs. I'm lessening the density of the roughs layer, and I've opened up a new layer where I'm going to do the final inks for these characters. And as you can see on the right, I've colored the ink layer, given it a black color, just to indicate to myself that it is the inks layer. And I'm inking here using the Real G-Pen tool. As I said in the last episode, the Real G-Pen tool mimics pretty closely the look of lines inked with an actual crow quill pen. You can get these nice, lovely feathered lines, as you can see. Again, this is sped up. What I'm going to show you now is how I do eyeballs. I'm using the ruler tool, the figure ruler tool, and making a perfect little circle with it. And now I'm inking easily over the ruled line. Now I'm freehand drawing just the rest of the eyeball. Using the magic wand tool to select that area. Now I use the fill tool, the bucket tool, to fill it with black ink. using the just the pen tool to create little eyeball shine and a little bit more rendering. And this eyeball has got its own separate layer. Just making sure I've made it the right size and positioning it using the Move tool. Now I'm copying it, pasting, using the Move tool to move the copied eyeball into position. Now I can collapse those two layers into one, and boom, I've got one layer with the eyeballs. Now I'm lessening the density of the actual inks layer so that I can use the eraser tool to easily erase the part of the eyeball that should not be visible. Bringing that opacity of the inks layer back up. Now I want to move this eyeball on the left a little bit, so I'm selecting it using the selection tool, and using the Move tool I can just scoot it over a little bit to make it perfect. Now I'm satisfied that those eyes are great, and so I've collapsed the eyeball layer onto the inks layer, so now it is part of the inks layer. And now I'm continuing on with the inks of the other characters. Now I want to use the ruler tool, the curve ruler tool, to ink the sunglasses on this fellow in the background. So as you can see, I'm meticulously creating nice, smooth, ruled lines using the curve ruler tool. And now I'm using just the black ink pen to go over those lines. And I've given the sunglasses its own layer so that I can afterwards easily erase all the parts that have gone on to Spontania and the other characters without, and that's what I'm doing here. Now I'm continuing to ink Spontania. I'm doing her arm, which is reaching out towards us. It's very severely foreshortened because she's taking a selfie. And as you can see, I'm making these lines thicker and heavier. And as I said in a previous lesson, there's a reason why lines get thicker and heavier as they get closer to us. Objects in the real world don't have outlines, they have edges. Comics art is line art, and it's a visual convention. Things in comics art have outlines, and it stands to reason, if things have outlines, that the closer they are to us, the heavier the outlines would be. This is a little refresher lesson on drawing ears. I think drawing ears is the litmus test of a good comics artist. If you can draw ears well, you've done your research, you've put in the work, and helix, antihelix, tragus, antitragus, lobe. Every part of the ear has a name, and everybody's got these parts. If you want to see a badly drawn ear, you have to look no further than our friend Rob Liefeld. That doesn't look like an ear to me. That looks like Rob Liefeld's idea of an ear. Okay, so do your homework and practice drawing things like ears. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting in this brick wall behind the kids. And I don't want to draw the whole brick wall, so I'm sampling it. I've drawn that one section, and then I copied it. And again, these things have all got their own layers, and I'm copying that, pasting it. I can just move it down. And by sampling things like this, I can save myself the time and trouble of having to draw an entire gigantic brick wall. Copying that, pasting it, got its own layer so I can move it. Look at that. What a time saver. kind of use the move tool to get everything lined up. Now I'm moving a copy of that. Pretty soon I've got an entire brick wall, and it didn't take me half as long as it might have otherwise, just by sampling, copying, and pasting. Now I'm starting to color, and I've laid in some sample art that Carl sent me, and I'm using it to select my colors. And now comes the fun part, coloring. You feel like, as I said, like a little kid again. All you got to do is kind of stay inside the lines. And here we are, sped up. Just putting in flesh tones. And as you can see on the right, the color layer has got I've given it a purple color, just to indicate to myself, to remind myself that this is a layer devoted to color. There's the flats laid in for the characters. I haven't done any tones yet, just flats. And there's the brick wall. I spent some time coloring that. This took hours, by the way, guys. A lot of this is sped up and accelerated, but it's a time-consuming process. But it's great fun. I've used the magic wand tool to select just the skin tones, and I'm going to start adding shadowing tones. If you look on the right, you can see there's a flats layer that's purple, and above it there's a tones layer that's also purple. And I've kept them separate so that I can adjust them easily without having to erase stuff and redraw. Now I'm just using the ordinary pen tool to lay in some shadow under her eyes, and now I'm using the smear tool to soften up those tones. Adding some light highlights on the up planes on her nose and cheeks, shadows on the down planes. Adding tones to the other characters. What I'm going to show you now is an interesting thing I do to convey cloth. I'm using the crosshatch tool in a multiply layer above the tones to add some texture to Marco, this character's clothing. Just adding some crosshatch effect. It's just a quick and easy way of conveying cloth or fabric. And now I'm blurring it. I've selected Gaussian blur. And there, it's blurred, and it just creates this sort of impression or indication of fabric. And now I've opened up an add glow layer, and I'm with white ink and the airbrush tool, I'm adding in some highlights. Look at that, very nice. Just kind of creates the sense that there's a strong light, maybe sunlight, hitting these characters. Now I'm turning off all the layers, because in the background, over the brick, painted on the brick wall, there's this spray painted graffiti. And I basically found a sample of graffiti writing online and took a screenshot of it. And I used it to guide me in creating this graffiti writing. And now I'm going to use the gradient tool with 2 shades of blue to create this gradient effect that you'll see in a second. But first I'm selecting, using the selection tools to isolate areas. And see that? Very nice. I've used the gradient tool to make this nice sort of graffiti effect of the word. So now I'm going to do the same thing with masked. I'm going to select it, I'm going to deselect the part that's already done, Avenger, and use that gradient tool to do that. And there's our finished cover. I'm very happy with it. Regarding the composition, there's not a whole lot to say. It's roughly pyramidal, as you can see. Spontania is right in the dead center, and there's these fingers pointing at her, so there's kind of like a couple of arrows guiding the eye towards her face. But mainly what I was going for was just creating a feeling, very much like the Friends poster that Carl had sent me, a feeling of stability, love, and friendship. That's what I was going for. Thanks for watching this, everyone. I sure hope you found it fun and informative. If you did, please subscribe to this channel, Icon Media EDU. And you can follow me, Prentice Rollins, on Instagram here. And be sure to leave any comments or questions in the comments box below. I look forward to hearing from you all. See you next time.